Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another professional match of StarCraft 2. Now what I got for you today is a Terran versus Protoss on Dreamcatcher LE. Now this game, it was part of the Ultimate series. It's actually been recommended to me by none other than Winter himself, so I am excited to figure out what this TVP is all about. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of the map and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. He's from the Ukraine. We are currently looking inside of the main base of Kas. Now, I haven't casted a lot of Kas games over the last couple of years. I know he still participates in a lot of online tournaments. But anyways, we'll get back to him in just a little bit before I blabber onwards, because spawning in the top left-hand corner of the map and playing with the red Protoss probes. Easily the strongest and most successful StarCraft 2 player from the United States of America. This man right here is of course a channel favorite, and he goes by the nickname of Neeblet or Neeb. You can call him whatever you like. I always kind of call him Neeb because that's the nickname that he used to go with for many years, and I think he still does. Although some of his accounts these days are called Neeblet. I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning behind that is, but there's no denying that this man is an absolute monster. Alright, so here's the thing about Kas. When I first started watching StarCraft 2 myself, back in 2010, when the game first went into beta, I actually watched a lot of online tournaments and whatnot myself as well. I watched players like, for example, or rather casters like, for example, Husky, like, for example, HD, and they covered players like, for example, Kas extensively. Now, the thing that made Kas extremely good back at the very beginning of the game is just the sheer amount of matches that he played. I believe Kas was like one of the very first players or something who got 20,000 ladder wins. A ridiculous number. He just grinded the ladder like no tomorrow. And because of that, he had very safe builds. He would recognize situations and then immediately respond. And it would basically allow him to be better than everyone else just because of his sheer amount of practice. Now, over time, I don't know if he still plays full-time or what the exact reasoning for it is. I know he still participates in online tournaments, but over time, I guess he sort of has been overshadowed by players like, for example, Neeb. And on paper, right now, in 2018, I'm definitely gonna have to give the upper hand right here to Neeb, obviously without having seen this game. But I'm excited to figure out how good Kas is at this point in the game. Because there's no denying that I think on paper everyone would favor Neeblet just because this man is an absolute monster. But there's no denying that Kas, of course, is still the player with a stupid amount of experience. In particular when it comes to playing from the comfort of home. Makes the game just a little bit easier to play, in particular when you're playing online. Some people really have a lot of troubles playing on stages. Whereas they play phenomenal online, they may have a harder time when they have to actually play against the public, right? When there's actually an audience and whatnot, and like cameras on your face and all that. Anyways, I'm excited to see what this match is gonna be all about. Kas did manage to get that Reaper scout inside of the main base, and while the Reaper died, it did report the information back to the Terran Dominion. The Stargate, indeed, is already coming up. Neeb is gonna open up right here with an Oracle. Now, there's one Widow Mine actually burrowing in a really cheeky spot. Beautiful move there by the Terran player, losing only, I think, a single Marine there. Yeah, one Marine in exchange for 2 Adepts is most definitely a trait that a Terran player will take any day of the week. I like that a lot, right? With the Shades, of course, having limited vision, Neeb could not see that the Widow Mine was burrowing just barely outside of that vision radius, and that means that the 2 Adepts indeed ended up going down. That's actually rather painful. Either Neeb is gonna have to take a risk and right now already take the 3rd base, or I guess he's gonna have to re-warp in those Adepts. Well, for the time being, it looks like he's feeling pretty confident about what's going on. But regardless, the first Oracle has already made its way across the map, and I say first because the second one has already been queued up as well. Now, the Viking is out. The Cyclone has already shot a couple of missiles at it as well. The Marines are here. The Widow Mine is still shooting away as well. I think that Kas is looking nice and pretty. Ooh. In the earlier part of this match. Now, the Oracle almost ended up going down. It, of course, fulfills several purposes. It's not just an harassment tool, but it's great for keeping track of that Terran army. It's great for keeping track of your 3rd base and actually keeping it alive. Now, with the second one out, though, I think that Neeb should be in a pretty good spot. He's going for the Glyph Adept upgrade. I like this one a lot. Usually, one of those things you saw a lot of Terran players get at the beginning of Legacy of the Void. when Protoss players and Zerg players alike were still trying to figure out, or rather Terran players and Zerg players alike were still trying to figure out how to deal with Adepts. It's such a weird unit. We had never seen something like that before in StarCraft. It's like a completely different movement than any kind of army unit in the game. But I think all things considered, this should be looking pretty good. Now Kas is going to load up one medivac, show the entirety of the Protoss army where that medivac is located. I wonder if that's on purpose. There is a whole group of Marines here, as well as, of course, that Widow Mine, but immediately Neeb jumped on top of that and he shut it down before it could really deal any kind of damage whatsoever. At the same time, a small group of Marines, as well as 2 of these Cyclones, made their way towards the 3rd base. I think that this medivac, though, is going to end up going down. And while one of the Stalkers apparently ended up falling here as well, with that shield battery right now finished up, as well as the glaive upgrade here for those Adepts, I think that Neeb is going to be able to force this Terran player to go back home. Now, apparently one Viking actually landed there. I think that's the Viking that must have been shooting away at that Oracle earlier. Eventually, Neeb managed to shut it all down, and I don't know if that really was a solid amount of damage there from Kas. I mean, Kas definitely managed to deal a little bit of damage, but I think that was an extremely clean hold there by our Protoss player. As a matter of fact, if you look at the unit's loss tab, you can see that that is very, very, very heavily in favor of our red Protoss player. Now, here come the Adepts. Sadly here for the Terran player, he just barely did not have that depot up. Obviously, it is a commitment you don't necessarily always want to make. In this particular case, Neeb decides to play it safe because he already has his 3rd base up and running. Now, there is a 3rd command center here for Kas as well. But with these Adepts out at his front door, it's going to be difficult to land that command center. Neeb could have tried to commit there inside of the mineral line. I almost feel like it would have been a good call, but obviously, if he would have won that, or if he would have lost that fight, immediately the 3rd base would be coming up here from Terran, and you don't really want to get into that scenario. You want to try and delay that for as long as possible, right? When you're ahead, try to get more ahead, and one of the ways you can do that is by securing a 3rd base and then making a whole lot of gateways. The Adepts right here on the right-hand side, they're still waiting for their opportunity, right? We see Revelation here on all of those bio units here from Kas. I almost feel like he can commit right now. The depots are once again down, right? Revelation is used on that too. Oh man, he's setting up for it. Still warping in a lot of units though is Neeb as well at home. But I think we have a little bit of double-pronged harass now coming up here for Neeb. So here we do see a couple of the units try to get in there. Ugh. That was not the engagement that I expected there for Neeb. Instead, yeah, the depots are now going to be lifted. The siege tanks were further out than the Protoss here assumed. And eventually, this will all be cleaned up. At the same time, though, Neeb is now moving across the map. He got himself that charged upgrade, just finished up. Ground armor level 1 is also finishing up right now as well. Is there a Warp Prism? There is. Okay, I was going to say, he needs that Warp Prism here. Gotta get himself a couple of Archons here, too. Very nicely done. And this is going to be a rather committed push here from Neeb. Now, Kas, you can see the macro of this man is really solid. He's already started building up a lot of units. And supply-wise, even though he lost a lot more than his opponent, he's actually clawed himself back into the game. This is by no means, though, an all-in here. Neeb does have that 4th Nexus already coming up. A couple of missile turrets that are also setting up. But with the double Archons trying to get in here, they will be forced to get picked up almost immediately once more. Although Neeb decides to commit once again. He warps in a couple of those Zealots. And I think at the same time, he might want to be shoving forward there with the rest of the army that he has. I don't know how much damage he's going to be able to do here inside of that main base of Terran, because Kas's army is absolutely humongous. Now, while part of the Terran bio army is distracted into the main, we do see that Zealot Stalker Ball making its way towards the 3rd here as well. Once again, the Archons are being dropped off. They're very low in HP. Only a single one does get evacuated. And while 10 workers here in total go down, I think that is manageable right now for Kas. Kas is already transitioning towards Ghosts. EMP, of course, very, very helpful. He's got himself a really solid amount of upgrades as well. I gotta say, I really do like this position here for the Terran player from Ukraine. It's not bad at all. 4th command center even, already just about to finish too. Kas is playing extremely defensive here, and I don't mind that whatsoever. He did an aggressive early game push, didn't really work. Neeb shut it down, but ever since then, he's been showing us how good his macro is. Very impressive. Now, Neeb did get himself that 4th base, right? He's been getting himself... Does he have the... I hope so. Yeah, he does have the Psionic Storm upgrade. Very important to have that, of course. Doesn't seem to have that many High Templar, though. Oh, he actually has 4. I guess they're hidden somewhere where I don't see him. Doesn't really matter all too much. He does have them, which is absolutely critical. Because Storm is obviously the main way that you can deal with this army. Now, at the same time, Ghost, of course, their primary duty is to EMP those High Templar to get them out of the equation, if that is at all possible. Still, though, I really like this position, right? Look at the minimap. The amount of red, or I guess green now, right? When I show the vision here of Neeb, is very obvious. He's continuously tagging Kas's army. Whereas if you look at Kas's vision, I mean, he's been scanning left and right, and he sort of knows where some of this army is located. But he definitely does not know nearly as much as his opponent. Now, the planetary is coming up at the 4th. That should keep it alive here for the time being. But the Protoss army is moving right now on the right-hand side. And even though... Oh, God, this is going to be awkward. Even though the Terran is moving out, he is not going to be able to turn back in time. Kas does decide to move backwards right now with the army. But the Protoss bull is already here. Little bit of indecisiveness, because it looks like Kas is still going to start attacking that 4th base of his opponent. Zealots, though, slicing and dicing away at as many of those SCVs as they possibly can. At the same time, units are going to be dropped off inside of that main base. There are those storms. They were inside of those or rather inside of the warp prisms all that time. While this is going on, though, Kas is pushing forward. He's got himself a really menacing army. He's dropping inside of the main base and shuts down a lot of the production here from Neeb. While Neeb is still ransacking his opponent's natural and a main base as well, he's losing a stupid amount here on the other side of the map. There's still a couple medivacs available, but they are running out of energy. That storm could be massive. I think he did not have enough there for a storm. Doesn't really matter all too much, though, because Neeb is definitely still gonna end up losing a lot of his units. Now, obviously, Terran is spawning the majority of his army right on top of where all these Protoss units are as well. So Kas essentially is sacrificing some of those Marines to the Blood God. And both players are taking heavy amounts of losses. 110 plus workers already, and they're not done just yet. A lot of probes in the top right hand corner, as well as a couple High Templar. I like that commitment. Kas does still have himself that planetary fortress, and he also has an orbital command with a lot of energy. Neeb is going to be able to build another Nexus over here, as well as one a little bit closer towards his old main base. But both players are taking tremendous amounts of losses. That planetary fortress may very well be the saving grace. I mean, Kas does still have a lot of resources. He should be able to repair this up for a while. But here we go. Is Neeb going to commit to it? Is he going to commit to fighting this base? I think he will. There, the repair will go down, but that is a lot of Protoss, and I think eventually this planetary will end up going down. The SCVs instead decide to just simply run away. Another command center is now being constructed here in the top right-hand corner. The Warp Prism does still have all of those High Templar inside of it as well, and I think with... Oh man, with proper hits though, this Terran army will just absolutely melt. Speaking of Terran army, there's still a couple medivacs inside of the old main base of the Protoss. You will find out that there's another Nexus taken right now on the left-hand side. He doesn't know about this one over here just yet. Big storms, though. Woo! Beautiful storm. I tried to combine the word big and beautiful. Big. That was an interesting word, Lowko. Anyway, doesn't matter. Big, beautiful storms there on all of that Terran army. And while the High Templar eventually go down... Ooh, did he get the EMP? I guess we will never know. Kas definitely still ended up losing a stupid amount of his army. So it's actually 2 workers versus only a single worker here for Neeb. So the 2 SCVs, one of them in the top right, the other one right here, building up another starport, whereas the one probe is happily mining off of that base that it made a little while ago. The command center, though, it's scouting out where his opponent's Nexus is at. The command center scout. I don't know if it's the most glorious unit to use for scouting, but it is going to be effective. Because at the very least, it should be able to fly away for a little while longer. But eventually, Kas is going to end up losing what is... Well, maybe he will. I'm not sure. I think... is he going to burn down? I think if he lands some mule and he can repair up in time, he should be okay. But let's try and take up inventory, okay? Kas secured himself the gold base. That's going to give him a very solid income. Whereas Neeb got himself a blue base mineral here instead. That orbital should live, which means that mules can be landed. There we go. One mule will indeed be dedicated with the task of repairing up that command center. But here's the armies. They are clashing in the center of the map once more. Beautiful EMPs are going down, though. They get rid of a lot of those shields on those Archons, but also on some of those sentries. Now, great force fields, though. A lot of the sentries did still have some energy. Part of that army got sliced and diced, but is there enough? Couple hallucinations there as well. Once again, man, I don't think you want to fight here, Kas. I don't think this is the location you want to fight in. That tight choke point, very difficult to engage into. Neeb is once again warping in more units, though, going for a lot of sentries, so he's really trying to get himself that value by building up a lot of those force fields. Man, that is a lot of sentries. That is 12 sentries and 2 stalkers. Seems a little bit unbalanced, I suppose. Now, I like this as well, though. Look at that, right? Kas somehow, some way found himself the resources to get the cloaking field as well as a Banshee. Is there an observer? There's no observer. He does have, obviously, oracles with revelation, but they obviously do need to have energy in order to pull that kind of thing off. Kas does still have a siege tank in his army as well, but no, it got the wrong, it got out on the wrong end. That was weird. It got dropped off right over there, and somehow it snuck out over there. Again, see, he must have accidentally greased it up in Vaseline or something. Once again, though, a lot of these Terran bio units are going down. The force fields are absolutely tremendous. That siege tank, though, from the back is starting to deal a lot of damage. The ghosts were also saved. Great pickup micro here by the North American Protoss player. And eventually, Neeb is the one who obtains the victory. I think Kas got a little impatient there near the ending. I actually think that he was in a superior position, right? But it's really hard to make that call. Obviously, when you have full vision of the map, it's very easy to mention who is currently ahead and how many workers you have. But, you know, in Kas's book, he probably looked at it and he's like, okay, I've got 1 worker. What the heck am I gonna do with just 1 SCV? Beautiful game there by Neeb. I love that warp-in of the sentries at the end. It seemed a little bit counterintuitive, but the majority of his damage came out of the Immortals and the Archons anyway, and he could just simply juggle those around with the Prism that he still had. Really well done. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're not a sub already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as future videos go live. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel and helping me do this whole thing full time. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again in the next one.